Okay. So hello everybody. I'm Maya. Maya Tillman. I work with the University Academy Foundation. So I'm the Alumni Success Program Director. So I get to work with all the wonderful students that have graduated from University Academy, the charter school that's here in town. So I do a lot of the college and career programming. So we are partnering with Mission Vision Project to host this webinar on medical school and the process of like applying and planning and just all the things that go into that for students that are choosing that route. So we have one student here, yay, and then a few more hopefully will be hopping on. And yeah, we can go ahead and maybe do some introductions for everyone else on the call.
Super. Uh, Actually, why don't we have our student begin introducing herself?
Hi, my name is Liddy. I'm currently a junior at UMKC. I graduated from UA 2021. Jeez, that was
Oh,
so
so
long
long
ago.
ago.
So long ago. But yeah, I'm majoring in chemistry, pre-med track, of course. And yeah, right now I'm in the process of, getting my personal statement, writing my personal statement, and also sending out letters of recommendations. And I just took my MCAT April 12th. So I'm waiting, yeah. I'm waiting to get back May 14th. So yeah, that's me.
Super. All right. Um, let's see. Nargis, would you like to introduce yourself?
All right. Hello, Liddy, and everybody else on the call and future recording people that are watching as well. My name is Nargiz and I'm a sixth year of the six-year med program. So that means I'm graduating of this year. Woo. I'm going to be part of the general surgery residency program at the University of Minnesota. And I'm starting June 17th. So it's coming up pretty quick. I'm a UMKC graduate. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but yeah, that's about it.
Great, great. Kaylee?
Hi, congrats on taking the MCAT. That's huge. Super big congrats on that. My name is Kailee. I'm a third year in the four-year program. So I went to college and I'm actually originally from Arizona. So I did my undergrad there and then I'm here for medical school and I'm currently on my pediatrics rotation. Nice to meet everybody.
Super. And Mr. Burgos?
Hey, good afternoon. Hello to our University Academy attendees and our future attendees as well. Thank you, Dr. Weaver, Ms. Weaver, for having me here today. My name is Michael Burgos. I'm the Assistant Manager of Recruitment in the School of Medicine. My job is to support prospective students that are interested in our BA/MD program at the undergraduate level. And then at the graduate level, I also lead our efforts for our MD program with both tracks, our PA program, and also our MSA program. So I'm happy to be here to support everybody.
We're happy to have all of you here. So my name's Michael Weaver. I'm a native of Kansas City, grew up on 27th and Prospect, was very fortunate to be in the inaugural class of UMKC's six-year med program. And I founded and am the president and CEO of Mission Vision Project, KC. And this is my wife, Jamila Weaver. Introduce yourself.
Hello. I support operations here at MVPKC, and we are a little nonprofit that works to be supportive of students who are underrepresented in medicine and other health professions because there seem to be lots of barriers. And we work with students to understand the challenges and what we as a community can do to be supportive. So we're just really thrilled to meet you, Liddy, and anyone else who's listening to this call in future days, because we want to hear from you. And ways that we can ask the community to stand with you and help you on your journey into your health profession.
Okay, and with that, I hope to share a screen in just a few slides. Let me know if everyone can see this. One thumbs up, two. Okay, so I think we can roll. All right, so As we said, the name of our nonprofit is Mission Vision Project KC, and you can see our tagline there. If you can see it, you can be it. And we named it Mission Vision Project KC because we recognize that so many underrepresented minorities didn't have healthcare as an option on their radar. That many of them, their role models or their aspirations were to be successful in sports, and if you're a Michael Jordan or Patrick Mahomes, that's great, or a rap star, that's great, but very few of us get to do that. And so we wanted to put this on people's radar and realize that you can be successful, have a successful career in healthcare. So as you can see here, we wanted our initial goal was to increase the number of underrepresented minority students entering health science program. And since I was a founder and went to medical school, the initial focus was on medicine, but as you'll hear, we've expanded also to pharmacy, dentistry, and nursing. And through collaboration with area hospitals, so St. Luke's Hospital, University Health Research Hospital, Children's Mercy, we've been collaborating with all those institutions, all those area hospitals, as well as the 3 medical schools, UMKC, KU, and KCU, and community partners like the Black Healthcare Coalition. Our why is basically, we can kind of summarize in 2 buckets. One is the social justice bucket that everyone became aware of with George Floyd, as well as the healthcare disparities that were brought out with COVID. And then the second thing that seems to resonate a little more at times with the business community is the ROI and understanding why it's very important. If you've got a company and let's say only 10% of your workforce is an underrepresented minority, then that's 10% of your workforce that isn't healthy. So it impacts your productivity, and if they're sicker, it impacts your bottom line in terms of healthcare costs. So I think everybody here understands that almost any metric you look at in terms of healthcare, underrepresented minorities have a higher mortality and morbidity associated with them. And what's interesting is that now we're actually, the literature is getting more robust and showing the importance of culturally sensitive, culturally congruent patient care in terms of healthcare outcomes, whether it's looking at infant and maternal mortality rate provided by racially and ethnically concurrent providers, or looking at the surgical procedures. And equitable representation is very important. And we look through the U.S. population, only about 6% of all physicians, African Americans represent about 13% of the population. But when you look at the percentage of African American physicians, it's only a little over 2%, only a little over 6%. And when you look at that and drill down to African American males, it's only a little over 2%. So we really need to increase those percentages. A lot of challenges that underrepresented minorities face in going to medical school. Awareness, number one, as we mentioned, just having it on their radar. Access to experiences that make them highly qualified applicants for medical school. So shadowing experiences, doing research, working in simulation lab, things that make their application robust. Mentorship is very important. And of course, the cost of going to medical school is a barrier for a lot of students. One of the solutions that we've been providing is what we call the critical mass gathering. And when I first started, I didn't mention this, but I ran the emergency department at St. Luke's on the Plaza for about 18 years. And when I was running the emergency room, it wasn't surprising that all 3 medical schools would call me up from time to time and say, Mike, would you mind letting an underrepresented minority shadow you in the emergency room? And that was great, but it was very erratic. Sometimes I, would have 0 students, and then some months I'd have 5 or 6 that all wanted to do shadowing. So literally 18 years ago, I thought, well, why don't I try to get all the underrepresented minority students from all 3 medical schools at one time in one place to follow the physics principle of a critical mass. So if you have a critical mass, you can sustain a movement. So what we started doing is having these critical mass gatherings where instead of just having 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 students at one time for mentorship, that we could bring them all together in one space. Here you see one of the programs we do called speech specialty rotations, where we have all the students. This is Michael Moncure, a trauma surgeon. We have all the medical students in one table, and then after talking to Dr. Moncure, 15 minutes later, they get up and rotate to another table, maybe my table, where they can talk to an emergency physician for 15 minutes, and then go to another table and talk to an OBGYN doctor. So this has been a great opportunity for the students to get networking, for them to find mentorship. We also provide STEP prep and MCAT prep, by the way, for students, and just trying to, any way we can, be supportive. And it's also good because we bring all the underrepresented, or as many underrepresented minority physicians in the community together at one time as well. So this was actually 2 years ago at our event, and you can see very robust group. See a lot of Black and brown excellence in one room. This was at KU. We had the president of the American College of Physicians, which is the second largest emergency physician group, second only to the AMA, and he came in and gave an incredible presentation about increasing access to the underserved. And this was our last year. We had over 200 people show up at Kaufman. 150 of those were underrepresented minority medical students, as well as pre-med students, and about 50 underrepresented minority physicians in the crowd. And my wife is pointing out one of those.
Kailee and Nargiz right here up front, participating in the event.
Super, super. So it's really about, creating this sense of belonging, finding that there are other people that support you. There are other people interested in you achieving, and others achieving the same goal as to being healthcare providers. And we've actually even been able, since this has been going on now for like 18 years, we actually have people that have graduated, have come to a CMG over the last 18 years and have come back to practice in Kansas City. So they're sort of our EMG alumni. And also now we're expanding, and initially, as I said, we were focused on medical school and medical students, but we're also expanding to nursing. We're looking at high school students, K through 8, and now also pharmacy and dentistry students. So again, just trying to create this critical mass of individual students who are pursuing healthcare careers. So that's our little presentation. And now I would like to turn it over to Mr. Burgos to talk a little bit about applying to UMKC Med School.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Weaver. And I also want to just kind of emphasize and reiterate some of what he just shared. Having the representation is so critical, right? And we're obviously here to support your interests in the world of medicine across a number of different disciplines, but also probably just as importantly, we're here to inspire the next generations as well. And so one of the things that I definitely want to get across is that as you assume in the next few years a position of medical education, wherever that education may lie, I want you to also assume a level of responsibility to pass along that education to future generations as well. That really is the foundation of my approach and why I got into education, and it's certainly something that I hear Dr. Weaver echoing as well in the work that his foundation is doing. And so that's what I want to start off with. Now, in my role, leading our recruitment efforts in the School of Medicine, we do have three programs, clinical programs at the graduate level. So the three are the MD program, the PA program, and the MSA program. The MD program obviously is for students that want to pursue the world of MD, physician-based medicine, and we are proud to be able to offer 2 tracks of that program. So the first track is located in the main location at UMKC, which is Hospital Hill, downtown location in Kansas City. That is a well-established track. It's a 4-year traditional track. So it does require you to come in with the MCAT, right? And so for those of you that are recently taking the MCAT and are planning to take the MCAT in the next year or so, make sure that you are putting all of your resources in and focus in on that examination for wherever you may be applying. The traditional track is obviously more urban focused and based. It's located in the downtown location. And our second track is more rural based. Now, the second track is located in St. Joseph, Missouri, which is about an hour north of Kansas City downtown. It is a track that is relatively new, still about 4 years into the program. We're entering the fourth year right now. We are also very proud and happy to be able to say that the university is breaking ground on a brand new facility. It's about a $15 million facility up in St. Joseph's location, because we really do believe in the importance of supporting rural communities and communities that have not often received the type of medical care that they need over the past few years. And so rural medicine is very, very important to us. If you look at some of the data and the research across medical education, the data shows us that those that have been trained in a medical specific geographic area, or those that have been trained in a medical specific discipline, are more likely to contribute to those areas professionally moving forward. And so we do believe that it's really important for you guys to weave in to your medical education the types of conversations that are associated with families and communities and parents and children that have not often received legitimate and ongoing medical care. And so that is really the essence of our approach to our rural track. Now, one of the other things that I want to talk about, just that kind of goes into both tracks, is our program really values the importance of primary care. And so when we talk about primary care, one of the biggest differences in primary care as a overarching term within medicine, as opposed to many different subspecialties, is the ongoing relationships that you will develop with children and parents and families and communities. As a primary care physician, right? Obviously, your focus of your academics and your professional career should be on patient care. It should always be a patient-centered approach. And we really look to support future family med physicians, OBs, pediatricians, hospitalists. What else we got in there? Internal medicine physicians, psychiatrists. Typically, about 50% of our graduates from our MD track will go into a primary care specialty. And so we do have a very strong track record of supporting primary care fields moving forward. And so that's certainly something that you guys should consider as well as the focus of our academic education. Another program I definitely want to speak on is our PA program. So for those of you in the future that, again, you're exploring different medical fields, the physician assistant is a phenomenal profession. As a physician assistant, you can practice across the country. You do have to work within the care or the practice of an MD physician across really any specialty that may be there. But you do have the ability to practice and implement the work as you see fit, right? And so I want to emphasize that PAs oftentimes, because of the education is a little bit shorter, there's not as in-depth focus within the world of medicine. There's a broad amount of information that you will have to learn, but it's not as in-depth and focused as the MD track. PAs are phenomenal profession to move into if you're interested in, moving into supporting families and becoming a medical practice, working in a medical practice. And so definitely want to bring your attention to the world of PA. We do have a PA program that's it's about 2.5 years in length. It does require you to come in with a undergraduate or graduate degree, and it's about 16 to 20 students per class for our PA program. The last program at the graduate level, which definitely want to highlight, is our MSA program, so Master of Science in Anesthesia-based program. So our AAs, anesthesiologist assistants, are licensed individuals that work as part of the anesthesia care team. And so similar to the relationship of a PA and an MD, the AA does need to work alongside an MD anesthesiologist. And so if you are interested in moving into the world of anesthesia and you have a passion for medicine involving inducing, sustaining, supporting families and patients before, during, and after surgery or procedures, the MSA program is probably a great fit for you. It is a program that, unlike PA, where you can work across the country, there are only, I believe, 19 states across the nation that allow for AAs to practice with their full licensure. And so keep that in mind if you're interested in moving across the country. It's a little bit more limited in its scope. But again, those are the three programs at the graduate level that UMKC offers. We are a program that really values, as a whole, right? We value cross-discipline collaboration. And so One of the cool things is that within our building, you obviously have the MSA, the PA, and the MD programs, but within the Hospital Hill location, you have nursing with a number of different undergraduate and graduate nursing-based degrees and advanced degrees. You've got pharmacy, school pharmacy again with a number of different degrees. You've got dentistry right with us as well. And then you have our clinical partners at University Health, Children's Mercy, which is a nationally recognized pediatric facility. You've got city, state, and local government agencies that are focused in on healthcare, laboratory research, and medical-based research as well. And so we have a very, very unique experience that we're able to offer students because we believe that it's important that you understand different roles within the healthcare team. And so we're able to deliver that to you during your education. So that's my opening overview of our programs. I hope that some of that information is helpful, and I'm certainly happy to expand and get into any questions that we may have.
Thank you. And so I think Lydia indicated that she's interested in she's pre-med now, interested in the MD track. So maybe Mr. Burgos, if you could speak a little about the application process and deadlines that she should have in mind as she's thinking about her next year of study.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And I'm also going to drop into the chat a specific timeline that we've just recently posted on our website. If anybody, future attendees watches this presentation, I want to make very clear that our timeline and information on our MD program have recently been updated. And so I want to make sure that you guys have the newest information, which has just gone up in the past month. So let me put that in the chat right now. But a couple of admissions requirements that I will share as I'm pulling this up, right? One of the first things, right, if we're to look at all the different components that typically medical schools look at when students apply, probably the single biggest factor which may limit consideration for an applicant is an applicant's MCAT score. So it's really, really important that you do well with the MCAT. You put all of your resources and your time into making sure that you are, putting your best foot forward once you take it, right? Obviously, the MCAT is not offered throughout the year. There are several months where it is not available. And so when your time comes around to taking it, make the most of it. Our MCAT minimum is a 495. I'll tell you that a 495 is the minimum to be considered for the program. But when we're talking about a competitive applicant, please have in your mind that shooting for the minimums is really never going to be enough. If 495 is the minimum, shoot for well above that, right? I want students to understand the importance of excelling at all the different pieces of their application so that they are, giving themselves the best opportunity possible. So what I'm going to do is post into the chat the website timeline for our MD program so you guys can see the updated information in case in the past you have seen this, would have been the old information. But a couple of things that I want to point out with the timeline. Our August 1st is the AMCAS and UMKC application deadline. So that's really the first biggest, most important date that you should be aware of, August the 1st. Make sure, for anybody interested in applying, right, make sure you're not starting the application process at the end of July. It is a lengthy process that involves multiple different pieces, getting documents into us, having a number of individuals write reference letters for you. So you want to make sure that there's enough time so that you are putting a legitimate application forward. Simply hitting the application timeline by August the 1st, just because you started it the night before, that doesn't do you any good, and it's not going to help us either. And so keep that in mind. I want you to do well. The next thing that I'll definitely bring your attention to is that this year is special for us as a department because we are now posting, as we sit right now today, the actual dates of our interviews. And so for our MD program, the first kind of hurdle that you're trying to get over is to be extended an interview, right? And so our interview dates right now, I'm looking at them right now, the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th of September. And so if you've been successful with the initial submission of your application, we will offer you an interview, which will take place on one of those 3 days. Now, the interviews are fully virtual. They are an MMI-based format, which means that students will go through a multiple mini interview-based format. They'll have a number of different questions at different stations that they'll get online, and they'll basically respond back to those questions in those scenarios. And so keep in mind that middle to the end of September, those interviews will take place. We then, at the end of September, early October, get answers back to students whether or not they have been extended an offer for our program. So you'll know by mid-October if you have a position in our class. And then the next most important date is that our ND program, both the Kansas City and the St. Joe's track, we only have a January start. So please keep in mind that there is no traditional fall start as many ND programs have. We only start our classes in January. And so that January start will obviously be for 2025 if you're applying this year, and 2026 if you're interested in the following cycle. But that's a little bit of information about our application process. I mentioned kind of just lastly here, the MCAT score is obviously very important. Your reference letters are really important too. Okay, so when you apply through our portal, there will be a requirement of a minimum of 3 reference letters and a maximum of 5. And so if you're submitting 2, your application is not going to be reviewed. It's a hard minimum of 3. So please make sure that you get that into us and no more than 5. It's really important that you identify individuals that can speak to your level of maturity, your level of empathy and teamwork and compassion as it relates to patients in the world of medicine. So quite often you can have a professor in history or biology that you had in college that really knows you very well. That's great. They can write a reference letter. But if there is a physician that you've worked with that can speak to your level of interaction with patients and that understands who you are on a personal and a professional level, oftentimes those individuals are in a better position to speak to your qualifications. And so consider who you're asking. Make sure it's someone that you can trust and someone that obviously has demonstrated a trust for you during your working relationship. So those are my tips for you guys.
Yeah.
Super.
Thank you so much for those comments. So as a nice little segue about tips for how to be successful, we at MVPKC have believed strongly in one of the concepts that Mr. Burgos was talking about, reaching back to the generations before. And for that reason, we have our fabulous medical students here with us who are always so eager to volunteer and give back and have this what I wish I knew conversations with up and coming students. So with that, I'll ask Kailee and Nargiz to speak a little bit about their experience. When we're at CMG in the room together, this session is called What I Wish I Knew. And we get a chance to hear from students about when they think about themselves, when they were undergrad or in high school, that they can let you know all the things that are on their minds. So Kailee, do you want us to start us out with a little about you and your What I Wish I Knew?
Sure. So, like I said, Nargis and I are a little bit different because she was in the 6-year program and then I did the traditional college one. So I did the MCAT and did the traditional way of applying to med school and everything like that. And it feels like a really overwhelming process, and it does have so many parts and so many different requirements. And I think, like anything, one of the most helpful things is just having somebody that has been through it and has done the process before, and that you can trust and ask them questions as you go, and somebody that you feel like you're not going to be bothering all the time for little questions, because there are people that really want to help you and want to see you be successful. So just finding those people and having that person to turn to whatever you have questions with is a great thing to have, and that will make the whole process so much easier. I think one of the biggest things I tried to keep in my mind when I was going through the application process was just like, how am I going to make myself stand out amongst other applicants? Like, whenever people are going through a list of 50 different profiles, like, how are they going to remember you once they're done reading the whole pile of 50 students? And so just trying to keep that in the back of your mind. And everybody probably has a decent understanding of science and will have decent test scores and GPA. So those things are going to be much harder to get you to stand out. So you want to seem very well-rounded as a person. So like, although you definitely want letters from doctors or science type people, like having somebody that was your history professor isn't like a horrible thing and can show your like more humanistic side. So just trying to get a full picture of you and like showing that you have a diverse amount of interests and all that kind of stuff is also really important. And so I just think trying to play up your strengths, obviously, and talking to people, because I know it can be hard to kind of brag on yourself. So people that you know and trust, again, just going to them and saying, hey, like, honestly, what do you think would make me stand out when I'm applying to med school? And just, it's such a good idea to pick other people's brains about how they view you. I think it's kind of a cringy conversation sometimes to want to brag about yourself, but it's what you have to do. And that'll definitely work towards your benefit when doing that. And then I think another big thing that helped me, particularly with interviews, another thing that probably makes people so uncomfortable, and it made me uncomfortable, but I think helped a lot, was I would go through a list of questions and just record myself answering them. And I would notice all the weird things I was doing with my face and with my hands. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. So I would watch back on how I would answer them and then just keep practicing until I liked what I saw, I guess. And just refining questions and practicing, not rehearsing answers so much, but just being able to get used to going off the top of your head and adjusting your answers and not saying the same thing every time, just because it can be a little scary, especially when you're doing like the mini interviews. I think is how most schools do them. And I know that's how my UMKC interview was, where you'll go into different breakout rooms on Zoom and it's like very fast. And so just being able to think quickly and practicing that, I think, is really useful. Then I'll pass it off to Nargiz, or unless you guys have questions.
Well, I have some, but I'm going to wait until Nargiz talks.
Okay, sounds good.
Alrighty, so like Kailee said, I am one of the 6-year med students. That means that I joined immediately after high school. I didn't really have to do the MCAT, which I think is really nice because I've heard some horror stories about it. And I think one of the things that I would have to recommend for people, and I think this is also something that could apply to you, Liddy, is and forming your own narrative. And what that means is just like how you apply for any job, you have resume and your resume building based on the job. Same thing you should do for your applications to either like a medical school or any college in general, right? So I realize it's very difficult for especially us, like for people to toot their own horns, right? Or make yourself stand out in a way that doesn't sound arrogant or put a bad taste in people's mouths. So I agree with Kailee that, reaching out to mentors, reaching out to, professors, people that you trust, for a fresh set of eyes and looking over your material is the best thing that you could do for your application. And expanding a little bit more on the narrative too, you want to make sure that everything makes sense, if that kind of makes sense. So for example, I would put, I'm very big on the Hispanic community, so is Kailee. I speak Spanish, I've gotten my certification. And so I would put that in my application. I would say, I speak Spanish. I am part of the Latino Medical Student Association. I've been a part for a long time, with multiple years. I do MVPKC, I volunteer and I come here. I speak to students. So a big part of my narrative, you see it all matches up with each other. Like Hispanic community, I do this, I speak Spanish. I'm also really big on mentorship. So I come here, I volunteer. My job, I used to work as an SI leader, which is like a tutor, practically. And so that's another method of demonstrating that I like teaching others. I love mentorship, helping the younger years. So you want to step back, have a list of all the things you've done in like a running resume sort of thing, and kind of piece together, kind of like a puzzle, what you want to show off to others, what you want to demonstrate in your application, who you are. And sometimes, you can get that in other ways. Like there are essays requirements, right? That you have to write down a couple things. And so sometimes maybe not in your resume, but in that essay, you can talk about, for example, I know someone who has a maple syrup business that he does in the winter. And so what he did was he wrote down the entire process of like choosing a tree, getting the maple syrup, like curing it, bottling it, and then going around different houses to like sell the maple syrup to other people, right? So sometimes something that it seems so ordinary to you is actually extraordinary to other people, right? Because doing this business, like it's learning a new skill set, it's communication, like communicating with other people, it's dedication because he'll have to go to like different houses and figuring out a method to canning these maple syrup jars and figuring out which jar is the right one. So you can say a lot with just a story or an experience that you've had. And sometimes you don't really stumble across that experience until you step back and you like very clearly think about uh, your journey so far. That's about it.
Nargis, could I also ask you to speak about Saturday Academy and Summer Scholar, your experience with
Yeah.
these programs here at UMKC, and how those and some of the ways that those helped you to be prepared for your application and interview?
So UMKC has a program called Summer Scholars and Saturday Academy that's open to high schoolers um, throughout the year. So Saturday Academy is always Saturdays, and you can join. I think the application's already closed, but you'll have to join in next year. Summer Scholars is something in the summer, and the whole point of these two programs is to expose high schoolers to the different medical programs that exist, you know, here at UMKC. So you learn everything from, experiments for chemistry, like finding out the pH in different substances to, making a cast, like a mold of your teeth, like the dentistry students do, or making an anti-itch cream or gel, excuse me, that a pharmacy student does, or in like one of the projects that I also helped was teaching how to suture or how to knot tie in one of the little workshops that were available to the Saturday Academy students. There's also a big emphasis on ACT scores. So you really clearly have practice exams, you talk to other people, you work through the program, the problems, and build up your ability to complete these exams and get a really good score. Another really big portion of the Saturday Academy and Summer Scholars is that if you complete these programs, and it wasn't the case when I went in, but it's changed. And I think it's a wonderful idea. Is that once you complete it, you'll have an interview spot saved for the 6-year med program. So I think that's an incredible opportunity. Um, Also, you get to meet, other medical students that are a bit higher up in the program and get those connections early because a lot of the people that work for Saturday Academy and Summer Scholars are 6-year med students. So, yeah.
So thank you for that, Nargis. If you're thinking about a student like Liddy who is past the high school experience, but some of those things that were helpful to you to have a standout application and a standout interview, are there things that you would suggest Liddy, if she hasn't had experiences, that she might be able to try to find in the community as she's preparing for her application? If you thought about certain things that really stood out as helpful to get you there.
I think STAR has moved to, their outreach to undergraduate students because I'm tutoring, or not tutoring, I'm mentoring one undergraduate student that's interested in a PA program and Rockhurst. So I think that's something that you can look into because you can form a mentorship with, a medical student or another professional that's already a step above me, right? That's already a surgeon, that's already a medical professional, and get, personalized help, right? So that's either them looking over your personal statement, them talking about different opportunities that they can give you, whether that's research or, you know, shadowing experience, right? I don't know, Kaylee, I think you can speak a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure like research and mentorship and, you know, uh, shadowing is something very big for medical student applications.
Yeah, so like for me, when I was in college, like my first year was normal, but then the second and third year was like really messed up by COVID. And I only did 3 years of college, so that like really it was hard for me to find opportunities like in person, especially like research stuff. But I just cold emailed, which means like I just found emails of like a bunch of random science professors at my college and ones that I didn't even know or hadn't met yet. And I just like explained my situation. Like, I really need research. I want to apply to medical school. Don't know who to go to, but I'm happy. Like, I see your lab is doing this and I'm happy to help like in any way that I can. And I actually ended up being in a lab that worked with geckos and like how they walk and evolution stuff. And I hated it. I don't like reptiles or like evolution science stuff, but I did it and that was enough for me to get into that school. So I was grateful for the opportunity and like whatever, like you can sell it as like I learned how to use the scientific method. Like literally, as long as you can gain something from the experience, then it's a good experience. And I think it's also important that you get any kind of clinical experience. Even one of the things I did was stalking like the ER carts in the emergency department. Like, did I really learn a lot from it? No, but it was like a clinical experience and I was able to help patients like finding their ways around the hospital and stuff like that. And it gives you something just to talk about. I also worked as a caregiver and that was like something that you didn't need any kind of certification for. So I think it's also helpful to find those opportunities because it's hard to find something where you don't need to go through a kind of training process. It's expensive. So that was another thing that I did, but just stuff like that.
Very good. Lydia, are you involved in STAR at UMKC? STAHR?
Yeah, I heard about it for the MCAT prep, but I mean, I recommended it to my other friends, but I knew I wouldn't be able to apply for it, unfortunately. But yeah.
Why is that?
My family's taking a trip to Senegal, and my brother has this very huge, like, important thing to do back home, so we didn't want to miss it. So
Oh.
that's
Ah,
mainly the reason, yeah.
But you're aware of STAR and you know how to apply and be part of that activity when your circumstances permit.
Yes, yeah.
Just want to make sure we don't need to find a link for that as well. Very
Yeah, thank you.
well, we have reached a wonderful time of Q&A, and with all of our presentations, what are your questions, Liddy?
Um, so for interviews, my main question is like, I know you said it was virtual in a virtual setting. Is it like a group interview, like in a breakout rooms, or it's just like one-on-one?
I think that it can vary a little bit between schools, but I think the vast majority of people do multiple mini interviews, what they call it. And basically, they'll like shoot you into a Zoom room, and then you'll be with one person for 10 minutes, and then that timer will end, and then you'll go to another room with a whole nother person, and it's like one-on-one. And the other interviews I had were like that too, where it's just one-on-one. But yeah. I haven't heard of people doing like you and like 5 other people all asking you at one time. So I think the majority would just be one-on-one, like multiple people, but not at the same time.
Okay.
can you
So,
dive either one of you, dive a little deeper into those interviews because they've changed a lot since I interviewed. And so what are the categories, like if there are 6 different interviewers that you see on video, what are the 6 different categories they're likely to ask you questions about? Or is it just kind of everybody has their own questions and there's no way to kind of even have any idea what to prepare for? Because I've heard
Again, I think,
but again, I've seen a lot of different, some where they actually have talked about calculating formulas or something like that. Have you heard of that?
yeah, again,
How
I think
many
it varies
CVs per minute?
between schools, like it's different, but for me, like they never put me on the spot and were like, you need to solve this problem. Like I never had anything like that, but it was more of like they would give me what's it called? Like I know it's like you're not supposed to talk about specific questions, but basically they would get like a parable or some like weird saying and be like, how do you interpret this? Or like another situation, what they'd put you in a situation and basically say, how would you react? Like if you find that another student is drinking like on the rotation and they're working with patients, but you can smell alcohol and they're acting drunk. Like, what are you going to do about it? So it's more like thinking a lot of ethics questions, not so much like just tell me about yourself. It's more asking you how you would respond, or like, what does diversity mean to you? Like those kinds of questions.
I would say the same thing. The most important thing that you need to realize is that they're looking for a person, like a regular human being. So don't say crazy things like, oh, you know, radical things. They are also really looking for, leadership and teamwork. So there could be like some sort of teamwork based activity. When I did my interview, it was in person because it was in person back then. I don't know if they'll have that or what type of aspect they'll have during a Zoom session for leadership or team-based activities. But they asked us to like build something, and the other person had the instructions. So you would have to, ask questions back and forth regarding that. So keep in mind that, you want to be genuine, but you also want to be, non-radical, have some common sense.
You all
Thank
both
you.
referenced standing out. So what are some things that you would recommend to make your application stand out?
For me, like I talked about a lot about the way I grew up. And so like my parents, they both worked in like a drug and alcohol rehab center. So I started my personal statement like the first time I saw somebody with jaundice and they had hepatitis. And so I just talked about how like as a 10-year-old that vision like really stuck out in my head. And then it led me to wonder like why drug addicts were treated so differently than other people that didn't use drugs, like by doctors. And so I think just having like a story or something that other people, like you're telling a story and they can picture it too, is something. And then like Nargis talked about having a narrative, and then so I would talk about, oh, that led me to volunteer like with other rehabs or stuff like that. Um, so I think that helps a lot. And like you can say how one experience impacted you, and then that led you to do A, B, C, and D, and you see a career in this because of all that kind of stuff. So I think that makes you stand out a lot, and it's very obvious to someone when they can tell what drives a person, and they feel really confident by talking to you. Like this makes sense, and you're not just saying that to stand out for like the purpose of standing out. Like it's very clear that this is a real thing. So I think that helps a lot and makes you seem really authentic. And that's something that's really important to people.
Mr. Burgos, any other suggestions along those lines of
Yeah, absolutely. So for our institution, as was shared, we do implement MMI, virtual-based format. So any student that is extended an interview will have all the information that they need on how to access our online platform. With our specific approach, there are 11 different stations that the student will attend. 10 of those stations will have a question. One of those stations will be reserved as like a break for you. So essentially you have 10 different questions that you'll cycle through in each of those 10 stations. Now for us, it is one-on-one. So there will be a member of our clinical team or an admissions team asking the candidate the specific scenario and the question, and then that candidate will have a period to respond back to that question. It's really important that you get across, obviously, your response and how you feel and how you would react to that scenario. But as was shared before, we want to know who you are personally, because ultimately the people interviewing you are going to be the people that you're going to be working with, right, in your classroom and in clinical settings and staff members across the building. So they want to make sure that you are mature and responsible and that you're able to handle the content and mix that in with professionalism as well. And so that's obviously very important as you conduct your interview. Across other institutions, right, just knowing the profession, there are other interviews that do implement multiple interviewers asking you questions and trying to get a sense of your approach to various things at one time. There are other schools that allow you to present like an initial statement of purpose. So, you introduce yourself first with like a full, basically a pitch, if you will, a medical pitch at the beginning, and then questions begin after that. There are other institutions that implement a combination of having a current student and a current faculty both interview you at the same time. And so there are combinations of different lengths and types of approaches with medical schools. As you consider different programs, please continue to ask these questions, because understanding the differences in the interviews may be the defining factor as to whether or not you're successful with them, right? Because it can be so different, it will change your approach and how you prepare for that interview. So keep that in mind moving forward, that there are a lot of different nuances across admissions departments and how we handle our interview process.
Lighty, any other questions pop up?
I think just like since we're on the topic of interviews, one question that always stumps me is like a tell me about yourself type of question. When I think of it, I just talk about like my major, like what grade I'm in, but like after that, I'm just like blank because it's such a broad question. It's like, what are you expecting me to like, what do you want to know? So how would you guys go about that question?
You're right, that is a super broad question and it's a really hard one to answer, but I think that's a great time where you go on your laptop and record yourself answering it in several different ways and then finding out how you like it better and then practice it again 20 times, because that's a really easy one that you have a great opportunity to stand out in. And like you telling me what your major is and what grade you're in does not make you stand out, because there's going to be a lot of science majors and everyone will probably, or most people will probably be like in the same year as you. So yeah, I would avoid saying that and use like every sentence to your benefit and try to think about it and what makes you you, and then that's what the interviewer wants to know the most. So I would try to think about that. It's really hard, but once you get it, then it'll be so helpful.
It's also going to be something that you'll use even after your application. It's your elevator pitch. It's going to be, the way that you'll meet, maybe future mentors, maybe future healthcare professionals that you want to build a connection with. Um, you'll be shaking their hand and you'll be like, "Hey, my name is, you know, Kaylee. My name's Nargiz. My name's Liddy, and I'm, a future healthcare professional. I've done this, this, this. I've worked at this. I would say that my main characteristics are, responsibility, dedication, resiliency. And I've demonstrated that through this project that I'm working on currently, where I'm going to go to XYZ. And currently we are, 95% completed or whatever. Like, I'm really partial to the idea of, you know, show and not tell. So what that means is, yeah, fun fact is also really good. What that means is like a story is the most important thing. Like a story is kind of the same like a picture that tells 1,000 words. So I agree that you definitely need to really polish that, even more than I would say your personal statement.
I will add sometimes that when you think about your why, each of us in this life have a different why for what drives us to do whatever thing we're doing. And sometimes it can be really compelling. But back to what Kaylee is saying, once you record yourself, you're going to figure out which of these ideas are the most salient and which ones like sound the most convincing and that make you so unique and stand out. But sometimes there's something that you're really passionate about, or like maybe your academics, or maybe your some hobby, or your reason for being interested in medicine, but there's something you're doing and there's a why behind it. And sometimes when you start to think about that, it's like, oh, I am really dedicated to this thing. And if it's something that, as Kaylee said, you can put into a couple of short sentences, and as Nargi said, that they stand out in a really chained together, compelling way, then you've got a really solid elevator pitch for, I'm Liddy and this is who I am. I mean, I think this is the fun part about personal statement and thinking about this is you are special. There's no one else in the world like you. And the more times you go around the sun, you begin to really see that each of us has our own reason that makes us so different. And when you get really comfortable with that, it's a very compelling statement about why somebody should give you a minute to finish your interview.
Right. Thank you.
I have,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead,
No, it was just another question.
please.
I heard that UMKC had a Med Scholars program. I'm not really too familiar about it. Are you, Mr. Burgos?
Yes, the Medical Scholars Program is offers students the ability to basically accelerate the application process when they're interested in coming into the MD program. And so for students that are entering, going from the sophomore to junior year of college or junior to senior year in college, they are able to go through the application process with us to basically say, hey, I'm going to be a junior or I'm going to be a senior next year, but I'm interested in applying for a future term. And so instead of like 2025, I could be a student going into, my junior year saying, I'm picking the 2026 start and applying as a medical scholar. And essentially what that does for you is it allows you to apply and go through the process earlier than the traditional student that is just applying regularly. If you are successful with the application process, basically we will grant you a position in that future term, and that position will be guaranteed to you as long as you essentially see out your classes, right? So you've got to graduate from college, and you've got to make sure that you're not getting into any academic trouble over the course of the next, year and a half or however long you still have within your university. It's a great program to kind of alleviate any type of worries that you may have about your future. A lot of students get to their senior year and even graduate, and they wonder, what is it going to be like to apply? Do I want to go through that process? I don't know what the future holds. Our medical scholars are in a position where they have they have their position given to them, right? And so they only need to do what they were planning on doing anyway, which is to graduate college. It is a nice program. Every year we do have students that go through the Med Scholars route. We do have everything that I've just shared is valid for the Med Scholar for the MD program. There's also a Scholars program for the PA and a Scholars program for the MSA program as well. So it's something that we think is important. It is not, however, offered to students across all institutions. So you have to attend one of our partner institutions in order to be considered for the Med Scholars program. UMKC, if you were an undergraduate student at UMKC, that would count. Obviously, we are, that's perfectly fine. I see that we just dropped in the link, so I was just about to post it. That's perfect, right? So there's a link in there for the Med Scholars right now, so you can check that out for more information. But yeah, hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Super. Well, we are right at time. Any closing comments anyone would like? Start with you, Jamila.
Just want to thank everybody for being here today. At MVPKC, we are always looking for ways to be supportive of student success, and pre-med students are super important in the process. So Liddy, thank you for your time, and hope that some of those things in the chat, comments and links are helpful to you. And we'll hear more from you coming up soon.
And I as well would like to thank all of you. As you can see, we have, and all of you who will be listening to this later, a very robust group of well-informed students and student leaders, and they fill the chat with a lot of great references for you. So please feel free to reach out to us because we're all interested in your success. And Maya will turn the last comment over to you.
Yes, thank everyone so much for sharing all their tips and wisdom. I saved all the links in a Google Doc, so if anyone needs them, I have them saved to send out to people after I send out the recording too. And just shameless plug, University Academy Foundation does have the summer internship program that has paid summer internships, which Liddy has been a part of the last like 3 summers at Children's Mercy. So she's been able to get some like really cool firsthand hands-on experience in like a medical and health setting. So that's just a shameless plug for anyone that's listening later to think about getting a summer internship and to contact the foundation about that.
Which we've all agreed is very important to make your
Oh, yeah.
application stand out.
So yeah, so with that, thank you all so much for coming and sharing your wisdom. And yeah, we will call it a night.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.